Hey friend, if you're planning a trip to Great Smoky Mountains National Park, here are the 12 things you definitely don't want to miss on your first visit. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes, and I am here to make your trip to Great Smoky Mountains National Park incredible. So I'm going to talk to you about the 12 things that I think you shouldn't miss on a first visit. And how do I make this list? Basically, I spend tons of time in the park exploring every nook and cranny, making sure that I hit all the trails, and then I narrow it down to the things that I think are worth your time on your first visit. Arguably, there are a lot of cool things to do in the Smokies, and you could spend a lifetime exploring this national park. But here are the 12 things that I think you shouldn't miss on your first visit. Number 1, Clingmans Dome. Clingmans Dome is the highest point in Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and from up here you just get breathtaking views. You can see about 100 miles each way on a clear day, and so you really get to get those beautiful Smoky Mountain views from the top of Clingmans Dome. So Clingmans Dome is at 6,643 feet above sea level, and it is the highest point that you can reach in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. What you'll do is you'll actually drive to the parking area at Clingmans Dome, and then from there you can take a 1-mile round trip hike up to the observation tower. This observation tower is really cool. This is where you get the views from the tops of the trees. You can see out really far from up here. Do be aware that the trail up to the observation tower, although it's short, it is quite difficult. It's pretty steep. And so you'll definitely want to take your time, especially if you're not used to hiking in the higher elevations. But this trail is paved. It's not wheelchair accessible because of its steepness, and pets can't come on this trail. But if you can make the 1-mile jaunt up to the observation tower, it's definitely worth it. Clingmans Dome experiences some interesting weather. You will notice when you get up there, it could be really foggy. It's usually 10 to 20 degrees colder than the rest of the park, and so you'll want a jacket. You'll want to plan for possibly some fog. If you need help knowing when to go, how to park there, when the fog is usually there, then definitely be sure to check out the Dirt in My Shoes itinerary that I have on my site. I will walk you through all of that and make sure that you can see Clingmans Dome at the best possible time. One last thing is you'll want to note that the road to Clingmans Dome does close from December through March. So to get to Clingmans Dome, I'm going to start you from here in Gatlinburg, which is where most people access the park. But you'll drive along this road here. This is the Newfound Gap Road. This is the main road that goes through the park. And then when you get to the Newfound Gap up here, you'll see this side road here, and this is the Clingmans Dome Road. So you'll take this road all the way to the end, park here, and then hike up to the observation tower. Number 2, Grotto Falls. Grotto Falls is a really fun waterfall in a national park that is full of waterfalls. So this is one of the best. This is one of the more popular ones, but it is really fun to be able to hike up in here into the trees. And this waterfall you can actually walk behind, and so that makes it really fun and unique. It's a great family-friendly trail, and it's definitely worth your time when you visit the Smokies. So the trail to Grotto Falls is 2.6 miles round trip. It does gain close to 600 feet of elevation, so it is a good amount of elevation gain in a relatively short trail, which is pretty typical of the Smokies, honestly. Usually there's not very many really easy trails per se, but there are some easier ones, and Grotto Falls would fall into the easier category. What's fun about this one is you get to drive the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail as you're coming to this trailhead, and that's a really beautiful scenic drive. And then you'll get to the trailhead and you'll make your way up to the falls. So Grotto Falls is, as I mentioned, along the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail, and so you'll start here in Gatlinburg. It's a one-way loop road, and so you'll start here and you'll go around here. And then as you're getting pretty close to the halfway point is when you'll get to the Grotto Falls area. When you finish up your hike, you'll have to continue around the loop here and finish up the entire loop, making your way back to Gatlinburg. And you will want to know, and you can see on this map here, that the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail is closed during the winter, so take note of that as well. Number 3, Mingus Mill. Mingus Mill is one of my favorite historic buildings in the Smokies. And Great Smoky Mountains National Park is full of historic buildings. There are so many cool ones to see, but you'll definitely want to make the time to stop at Mingus Mill. You may have seen pictures of Mingus Mill. It's pretty popular and it's just so picturesque and beautiful. Mingus Mill is the park's largest grist mill, and so when you get here, you can walk around the mill race, you can see the turbine, you can learn more about the mill from a miller or a volunteer that is there to teach people about the mill. That's really fun because you can see a demonstration of how they make the cornmeal. There's a little store in there that you can purchase some things, some little souvenirs. And this is also just a fabulous place to be in the fall. The big, huge trees around the mill turn gorgeous colors, and it's just so nice in the fall. If you want to visit the mill while the demonstrations are happening, then you'll need to go between the months of March and November. They're typically there from about 9 to 5 with a break for lunch in the middle of the day. If you don't care to see the demonstrations or you're visiting at another time of year, then you can still stop by the mill and walk around and take in the beauty of the area. Mingus Mill is found on the North Carolina side of the park, and so if you're in Gatlinburg, you'll drive the entire Newfound Gap Road. So the North Carolina state line is this yellow line here. That's also the Appalachian Trail, but it marks the state line as well. And so as you go down from the Newfound Gap and down back into the valley into North Carolina, then you'll hit Mingus Mill just right before you leave the park. Number 4, the Newfound Gap Road. This is the main road through the Great Smoky Mountains. This is where you'll be spending a good amount of your time while you're visiting the park, but it's definitely worth noting some of the beautiful things that you'll see as you drive this road. So the Newfound Gap Road goes through the Smokies. It connects the Tennessee side to the North Carolina side. It's 33 miles long and gains about 3,000 feet in elevation. So as you're driving this road, you'll notice that the weather and the temperatures will fluctuate quite a bit as you're making your way up into the mountains. You'll also be treated to just gorgeous views of the Great Smoky Mountains from up here. Some of my favorite stops along the Newfound Gap Road are the Campbell Overlook, Chimney Tops, Alum Cave Bluffs, Newfound Gap Overlook, if you take the side road down to Clingmans Dome, and Mingus Mill. But there are a lot of other trails you can take. There are a lot of little viewpoints along the way, and so I highly encourage you to find your own special places as you drive this road. The Newfound Gap Road is the road that connects Gatlinburg here all the way down to Cherokee on the North Carolina side. Number 5, the Appalachian Trail. If you are a hiker, then you have probably heard of the Appalachian Trail. It's a really famous trail that goes from Georgia up to Maine. It's over 2,100 miles long, and it travels right through Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and so you have a chance to hike a portion of this trail while you're here. You'll find a few good places to access the Appalachian Trail within the Great Smoky Mountains, but one of the most popular ways to hike this is to hike out to Charlie's Bunyan. This is an 8-mile round-trip hike, and it leaves just directly from the Newfound Gap at the top of the Newfound Gap Road. So that makes it super easy. You can park there, you can hike out really just as far as you want. You don't need to go the full 8 miles, but it does give you a chance to get a taste of the Appalachian Trail. I highly recommend just starting the trail, even if you don't want to hike very many miles or if you don't want to go too far. It definitely is still fun to take a few steps on the Appalachian Trail to say that you've done it. And you'll notice, as you're at the Newfound Gap, if it's the right time of year, you may see people who are hiking the entire trail, which is really cool. So there are people that start down in Georgia and they make their way all the way up to Maine. It takes usually about 6 to 7 months to do that. And they'll cross right through the Great Smoky Mountains about halfway through their hike. So the Appalachian Trail does cover a lot of Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is super cool. So it comes in from over here and they come up here and then they follow the Tennessee-North Carolina state line for a while. You can access the Appalachian Trail from Clingmans Dome. That is part of the trail here. and then it crosses the Newfound Gap right here. And so then it continues on all the way up into here and heads up towards Maine. Number 6, Laurel Falls. Laurel Falls is one of the most popular waterfalls in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It's one of those that you'll just want to do on your first visit, just to say that you've done it and you've been there and you've seen it. It is gorgeous and the hike is really nice. This waterfall is about 80 feet, and the trail to Laurel Falls again falls in it's not necessarily easy, but it is easier than a lot of the other trails in Great Smokies. This trail gains about 314 feet. It's 2.6 miles round trip. The trail is paved, but it's not good pavement, and so it's not suitable for strollers or wheelchairs. The hike to Laurel Falls is very kid-friendly. It's great for families if you want to go and have a nice hike to a waterfall. There are a few steep drop-offs as you get closer to the waterfall, and you'll also want to note that it is common to see black bears in this area, and so you'll want to stay together as a group, especially if you're hiking with kids. You'll want to keep them close by as you make this hike. But it's a fabulous hike. Definitely enjoy the time together hiking to this beautiful waterfall. The Laurel Falls parking area and trailhead has been extremely congested lately. The park is looking for some ways to handle that. They've tried a few different things. But if you want help with the most up-to-date information on how to get parking at Laurel Falls, whether you need a reservation or not, or what type of program they have in place for that at the time, then definitely check out a Dirt in My Shoes Great Smoky Mountains itinerary. I will walk you through that entire process so that you can get to Laurel Falls without any headaches. To get to Laurel Falls, if you're starting here in Gatlinburg, you'll go down towards the Sugarlands Visitor, and then you'll take this little river road over here. You don't have to go very far. The Laurel Falls trailhead is just right here. Number 7, the Elkmont Historic District. So the Elkmont Historic District is more commonly known as the Elkmont Ghost Town in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And this is a really fun place to stop, to wander, and to see some of the old buildings that used to be here before the park was established. So the Elkmont area was once a thriving vacation club. And so there's individual cottages, there used to be a hotel, there's a clubhouse. A lot of the buildings have fallen into disrepair, and so that's why people started calling it a ghost town. But the National Park Service has started restoring a lot of the buildings in this area. They did demolish some of the buildings, they're restoring others, and so now you can actually go through here and there's some buildings that you're able to walk through and some things that you're able to explore. So that's really fun, and it's just a fun way to spend a little bit of time getting to know the creepier side of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The Elkmont Historic Area is located, if you go from Gatlinburg, you'll go towards the Sugarlands Visitor Center, you'll go down here on the Little River Road, and then you'll turn down towards the Elkmont Campground. You'll pass the campground, actually you'll keep going to the end of the road where you'll then find the Historic District. Number 8, the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail. This is a gorgeous scenic drive through the Smokies. It's located close to Gatlinburg, so it's very convenient for getting out and getting into the scenery of the park quickly. And this is basically a one-lane road that travels about 6 miles through the mountains and takes you to some really great stops and trailheads. Along the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail, you'll see things like the Ogle Farmstead, which is a historic homestead that you can walk through. You'll find the trailhead to Rainbow Falls, the trailhead to Grotto Falls. You can stop at the Place of 1,000 Drips. There's a few more homestead and historic buildings along the way, and a few really nice viewpoints. So I definitely recommend making this drive. It's gorgeous, and it's just a fun way to spend a few hours. You will want to note that the road is one way and it is narrow, and so buses, trailers, motorhomes, RVs are not permitted on this road. The road also does close from December to March. So to get to the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail, if you're starting here in Gatlinburg, then you're coming down over here. So you actually catch it from town. It can be a little bit confusing, but basically you're looking for stoplight number 8. And then you're going to turn in here, and then it will take you around this loop here, which is the Motor Nature Trail. Number 9, the Alum Cave Trail. This trail is one of the most popular and famous trails in the Great Smoky Mountains. It is beautiful. It takes you up into the mountains. You're working your way through a forest. You've got beautiful views, a nice stream. You get to go through Arch Rock, which is a really cool formation, and then you get to make it to the cave bluffs, which basically is just a rock overhang up in the mountains with a really nice view. I really love this trail because it's got a lot of variety. It is a more difficult trail. You're going about 4.6 miles round trip, but it does gain almost 1,200 feet of elevation. So that's a good amount of elevation gain in a relatively shorter trail. But what's nice about this one is that you can actually turn around at any time and still feel like you had a really nice hike. So there are a lot of things that you'll see as you work your way along this trail. Even if you don't make it to the cave bluffs, then you'll still have a really enjoyable experience. So I definitely recommend at least starting this trail, making it as far as you can. See if you can make it to Arch Rock if you don't want to go all the way up to the cave bluffs, but it is a really beautiful trail. So to get to the Alum Cave trailhead, you're heading down on the Newfound Gap Road here. And you'll reach it right before you get to the Newfound Gap or the top of the road, and it's right here. The parking lot for this is super busy as you get into this area because you've got Chimney Tops here, which is another popular hike, but this whole area of the Newfound Gap Road stays quite congested, and the parking area for Alum Cave does fill quite quickly. And so if you're wanting any help with that, I have my itinerary where I can walk you through the best time to be there. But do be aware that this little stretch here does stay quite busy during the summer and fall. Number 10, Cades Cove. Cades Cove is probably the most popular and well-known historic area in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It is a beautiful collection of old historic buildings. You get to see a lot. There's a lot of wildlife here. It's a lovely scenic drive, and so it's just a really good place to spend a decent portion of your trip exploring and really getting to know the historic side of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So Cades Cove is an 11-mile loop road. It's a one-way road, and so as you work your way around this one-way road, you'll find many points of interest. Some of my favorite stops are the John Oliver Place, Abrams Falls, the Cable Mill Historic Area, and the Carter Shields Cabin. But there are so many other things that you can see as you're driving through Cades Cove. The road through Cades Cove is closed to cars on Wednesdays, and so that allows people to bring in their bicycles. It allows you to walk the loop. You can take horses in here. And so that's a different way to see the cove if you're hoping to have a little bit less traffic and a little less congestion. And here's the real truth about Cades Cove is that it does get so busy. The first time I went to Great Smoky Mountains National Park, without realizing kind of the timing of things and when to be where, I was in Cades Cove at what I thought was a good time, but we did end up getting stuck in traffic for about an hour and a half trying to get out of the cove. So it does get really congested back in there. Everybody wants to see it. Everyone wants to drive it. If you go at the wrong time of day, it's really easy to not even be able to get parking because the parking lots are really small and people are just moving through and trying to stop at everything. And so it makes it hard. You know, if you're there when it's really busy, there's a good chance that you'll have a really difficult time finding parking in the cove. I have been back to the Great Smoky Mountains many times since then and have had much better experiences. So it does really depend on what time you're there and what time you're visiting Cades Cove as to how much traffic and crowding issues you'll run into. So if you do want my suggestions on when I would be at Cades Cove and where to stop, kind of how to pace yourself so that you don't get stuck in those traffic jams, then be sure to check out my Dirt in My Shoes itinerary on dirtinmyshoes.com. You will find Cades Cove over here on the western side of the park. And so there's a few different ways to get here. If you're coming from Gatlinburg, you'll probably just drive this Little River Road here, following it all the way to Cades Cove. You could also, if you're coming in from Pigeon Forge or if you're coming in from Townsend, you can enter the park down through here and then enter Cades Cove this way. Number 11, Spruce Flat Falls. So I've got another waterfall hike for you. When in the Smokies, you definitely need to hike to as many waterfalls as you can. But the Spruce Flat Falls hike is unique in that a lot of people don't know that it's there. It's a quieter trail. It's less visited area of the park. And so it gives you some peace and solitude that you might not otherwise get on some of the other waterfall hikes in the park. So Spruce Flat Falls is a 30-foot waterfall. The hike to the falls is about 2 miles round trip. Again, it's not really an easy hike, but it is one of the easier hikes in the Smokies. You do have a few steep sections of the trail as you're going down to the bottom of the waterfall. And there are a lot of branches, rocks, things that you can trip over as you're making your way down. So you will want to keep that in mind. But it is a really nice trail, and you are likely to find a good amount of solitude on this trail. So to get to Spruce Flat Falls, you'll go, if you're coming from Gatlinburg, you'll start here and you'll drive the Little River Road over through here like you're going to Cades Cove. You go pretty far. Then when you get here to this intersection here, you'll turn down like you're going to the Great Smoky Mountains Institute. And you'll actually park at the Institute. There is parking for the trail. And then you'll follow the signs from there to get to Spruce Flat Falls. And number 12, the Mountain Farm Museum. For the Mountain Farm Museum, we're taking you to the North Carolina side of the park again. And this area is just gorgeous. You're right next to the river. You're right next to the visitor center. There's typically a lot of elk in this area if you time your trip right. And so this is a really nice place to be, just to explore what an old homestead or a farmstead would have looked like in the Smokies, and to hopefully see some wildlife as well. So the Mountain Farm Museum is outdoors. It's right on the banks of the Oconaluftee River, so it's gorgeous. And you just walk from building to building. They have different interpretation panels you can read. When we were there last time, they had live pigs, so my kids really liked that. And it's just a really fun place to get out, stretch your feet, learn more about what it would have been like to farm in the Great Smoky Mountains. The North Carolina side of the park is quieter than the Tennessee side, so while you're down here visiting the Mountain Farm Museum and Mingus Mill, you might also want to do a couple of other things if you have time. I recommend checking out either the Deep Creek area of the park or the Cataloochee area of the park, or driving the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is another famous national park unit down here. So there are a few really great options to spend your time if you're hoping to spend a little bit more time on the quieter side of the park. To get to the Mountain Farm Museum, you'll drive the Newfound Gap Road, and you'll drive it all the way down here to the Oconaluftee Visitor Center. So you'll just park here at the Visitor Center, and then you'll see the Mountain Farm Museum out in the fields. And that's where you'll wander over to learn more about farming in the Great Smoky Mountains. If you want to go over to Deep Creek, then you'll find that right over here. There's some really nice waterfall hikes over here. If you want to go up to Cataloochee, then that's a little bit longer of a drive. You go up this way and up here, and then you get into Cataloochee over here. There are historic buildings here, as well as a really, really great place to see elk in the fall. So that's really nice. Or you'll see basically directly next to the Oconaluftee Visitor Center is where you'll pick up the Blue Ridge Parkway, which starts right here. And the Blue Ridge Parkway starts at the North Carolina side of the Great Smoky Mountains and travels all the way up to Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. So this is a really fun area to explore if you're looking for a few more things to do. And there you have it, the 12 things that you can't miss on your first visit to Great Smoky Mountains National Park. This will keep you busy for about 4 days. And so if you're wanting to spend a good amount of time in the park and you're hoping to see all the best stuff, that's how you'll do it. If you need more trip planning help, including how to spend your days, where to stay, what to do, then you can click on over to dirtandmyshoes.com, where I have all that information for you, and so that you can have a great national park vacation without all the work. I hope you have a great time at the Smokies, and happy trails.